Braven stars Jason Momoa and Stephen Lang and is about a logger named Joe Braven who lives with his wife, his daughter, and his elderly father who is currently suffering from dementia. And one day, him and his father decide to escape to their nearby cabin just to get away for a little while. However, unbeknownst to them, a group of thugs have hidden a rather large amount of drugs in that cabin and they want it back. In all honesty, I went into this movie blind. I didn't really know what to expect. I thought the premise was kind of interesting. I like the two main actors, Jason Momoa and Stephen Lang. I think when they're given the right roles, they are really good. And also, it was really cheap on Amazon. So I thought, you know what, fuck it, I'll give it a watch. And I was pleasantly surprised, but also kind of bored at the same time with this movie. Because there were certain elements that did surprise me in how well they were executed, but for the most part, it's pretty bland and unoriginal. The main aspect of this movie that worked for me was specifically the acting and the relationship that the character of Joe has with all of his family members. That was easily the best part of the movie for me. The acting was really good. I think Jason Momoa and Stephen Lang work really well together, and like I said, they were one of the main reasons why I decided to watch this film, and they really do give it their all, especially Jason Momoa, who I think is really good here. Probably one of the best performances I've seen him give in recent memory. Stephen Lang is also really good. He's not really given much to do, but for what he's there for, I do think he does a good job of portraying such a broken and damaged person. And the relationship that all of these family members have leads to some really somewhat touching moments and a level of sentiment that is added to the film that I wasn't really expecting from a movie like this. And I thought it was well needed, and it especially kicks in towards like the third act of the movie, and that whole relationship between the family members really worked in that sense. And like I said, I wasn't expecting that in this kind of movie. Apart from that, everything else is as average as you can possibly get in a movie like this. The cinematography is pretty nice to look at, especially some of the wide shots that open the movie, but apart from that, everything else is very basic. The fight choreography, the direction, the soundtrack even, is stuff you've seen and heard a million times before. For example, there were certain moments when the score kicks in that I'm just like, this is nothing special. I've heard this in a load of other action thriller type movies. So it doesn't really do much for me. And the direction, whilst it does try, again, it's just, there's nothing special about it. There's no shots or moments that particularly stay in my head. It just happened, and that's it, really. The bad guy is incredibly forgettable. I don't even know what his name is. I don't even think they even address his name in the entire movie. If they do, then it is very brief, because I don't remember them at all mentioning his name. But he is a really bland villain. He's just there to get his drugs back, and he's a bit of an arsehole. Like, the first time you see him in the entire film, he pretty much kills someone in a diner in front of a load of people, and you have no idea as to why he's just done it. Like, obviously, I get that it's maybe trying to establish that he's a prick, but why? There isn't really anything else to that character other than, I want my drugs back and people are going to start dying. That's literally his entire motivation for the film. He wants the drugs back and he will kill people. There's nothing else. He's really forgettable. And that pretty much goes for most of the other characters in the film. Also, even though I said the cinematography towards the beginning of the movie is really nice to look at, especially when it's the wide shots of the local surroundings, that is true. That cinematography is very nice. But as the film progresses, I do feel as if the cinematography and camera work does get progressively worse. And I'm not talking about like shaky cam. It doesn't go into shaky cam territory at all, which I think is really good because you can actually see the fights happening and you can actually see what's going on. But there are just a couple of shots in particular that happen in the second half of the movie that are noticeably bad. And they're the kind of shots that you can easily remove or get rid of or tweak to not make them shit. For example, there's a shot of Braven hanging over the edge of a cliff, and it does kind of look a bit green screen-y, but I think it might also be a combination of bad camera work as well. But it's not just that, there's also a specific shot that I had to rewind because I didn't know whether I was seeing it right. And it's during like this car chase about halfway through the movie. And you can obviously tell that to film this car chase, they had the camera in one car and filmed the other car through the windows of the car they were in. And the reason I say you can tell is because there is one shot where the rim of the window of the car they're in is in shot. Stuff like that can be easily removed by just, zooming the shot in post. And it kind of breaks that illusion of the camera is on a track that is parallel to the car, and it kind of breaks the immersion of that moment. Because when I noticed it, I had to rewind it because I was like, no, what was that on the screen? And yeah, after noticing it, it was pretty bad. Luckily, it doesn't happen that often, things like that, but unfortunately, there were a few shots that were noticeably poor in execution that I just couldn't get out of my head. In the end, Braven is a competently executed movie that I will probably never watch again. The acting is pretty good, especially from the main actors, and the relationship that family has really works in the film, but everything else is just painstakingly average, which is why I'm going to give Braven a 6 out of 10. Don't really want to go any lower because I did have a bit of enjoyment with this movie, but I definitely can't go any higher because it doesn't do anything special. I knew where stuff was going from a mile away, and in a movie like this, I get that there's not much you can really do, but I'd like to be surprised every now and then in a movie like this. Try and do something that the audience may not be thinking. And like I said, I know it's not that easy when this kind of premise has been done a million times before, but just try and do something different. Even if it's subtle, just try and do something. So guys, that was my review of Braven. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.